Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnu Pada Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Shtotra Shati His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnu Pada Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Shtotra Shati Shri Mad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Kuti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Premshika Ho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mathura Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Maya Ki Jai. Yamuna Maya Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Hare Krishna, good morning everybody. So, Govardhan Prabhu asked me to speak today, so I'll try to say a few nice things by your blessings. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nasta Prashabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So today we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 6, chapter number 17, Mother Parvati curses Citraketu, and text number 16 and 17. Shri Shuka Uvacha Evam Shaptash Citraketur Vimanat Avaruhya Saha Prasadayam Asa Satim Murdna Namrena Bharata. Shri Shuka Uvacha Evam Shaptash Citraketur Vimanata Varuhya Saha Prasadayamasa Satim Murdnanamrena Bharata. Shri Shuka Uvacha Evam Shaptash Citraketur Vimanata Varuhya Saha Prasadayamasa Satim Murdnanamrena Bharata. Shri Shuka Uvacha Evam Shaptash Citraketur Vimanata Varuhya Saha Prasadayamasa Satim Murdnanamrena Bharata. Please chant. Citraketu. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Evam Saptaschitraketu. Vimanadavaruyasa. Prasadayam Asasatim. Mudnanamrena Bharata. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Evam Saptasu Citraketu. Evam Saptasu Citraketu. Vimanadavaruyasa. Vimanadavaruyasa. Prasadayam Asasatim. Prasadayam Asasatim. Murdhanamrena Bharata. Murdhanamrena Bharata. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Evam Saptaschitraketu. Vimanadavaruyasa. Prasadayam Asasatim. Murdhanamrena Bharata. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Evam Saptaschitraketu. Vimanadavaruyasa. Prasadayam Asasatim. Murdhanamrena Bharata. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Evam Saptaschitraketu. Vimanadavaruyasa. Prasadayam Asasatim. Murdhanamrena Bharata.
I'm going to switch up, but did we do normal or part of the thing?
Anybody else? Okay, word-to-word meaning. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Shri Shukadev Goswami said, Evam, thus, Shaptaha, cursed, Citraketu, King Citraketu, Vimanat, from his airplane, Avaruhya, coming down, Saha, he, Prasadayam Asa, completely pleased, Satim, Parvati, Murdna, by his head, Namrena, bent low, Bharata, O King Parikshit. Translation and comments, only translation here, but commentaries in the next text. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Swami Prabhupada. Sri Shukadev Goswami continued, My dear King Parikshit, when Citraketu was cursed by Parvati, he descended from his airplane, bowed before her with great humility, and pleased her completely. Text 17. Citraketu said, My dear mother, with my own hands folded together, I accept the curse upon me. I do not mind the curse, for happiness and distress are given by the demigods as a result of one's past deeds. And commentaries. Since Citraketu was a devotee of the Lord, he was not at all disturbed by the curse of Mother Parvati. He knew very well that one suffers or enjoys the results of one's past deeds, as ordained by Daivanetra, superior authority, or the agents of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He knew that he had not committed any offense at the lotus feet of Lord Shiva or the goddess Parvati, yet he had been punished. And this means that the punishment had been ordained. Thus, the king did not mind it. A devotee is naturally so humble and meek that he accepts any condition of life as a blessing from the Lord. Tatyenu kampam susamikshamanaha. Bhagavatam 10:14-8. A devotee always accepts punishment from anyone as the mercy of the Lord. If one lives in his conception of life, he sees whatever reverses occur to be due to his past misdeeds, and therefore he never accuses anyone. On the contrary, he becomes increasingly attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead because of his being purified by his suffering. Suffering, therefore, is also a process of purification. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur says in this connection that one who has developed Krishna consciousness and who exists in love with Krishna is no longer subject to suffering and happiness under the laws of karma. Indeed, he is beyond karma. The Brahma Samhita says, Karmani nirdati kintu cha bhakti bhajam. A devotee is free from the reactions of his karma because he has taken to devotional service. The same principle is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 14.26. Sagunan samatitya tan brahma bhuya kalpate. One who is engaged in devotional service has already been freed from the reactions of his material karma, and thus he immediately becomes Brahmabhuta, or transcendental. This is also expressed in Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, 2nd Chapter, Text 21. Kshiyanti chasya karmani. Before attaining the stage of love, one becomes free from all results of karma. The Lord is very kind and affectionate toward His devotees, and therefore a devotee in any condition is not subjected to the results of karma. A devotee never aspires for the heavenly planets. The heavenly planets, liberation and hell, are not different for a devotee, for he does not discriminate between different positions in the material world. A devotee is always eager to return home, back to Godhead, and remain there as the Lord's associate. This ambition becomes increasingly fervent in his heart, and therefore he does not care about material changes in his life. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur comments that Maharaj Citraketu's being cursed by Parvati should be considered the mercy of the Lord. The Lord wanted Citraketu to return to Godhead as soon as possible, and therefore he terminated all the reactions of his past deeds. Acting through the heart of Parvati, the Lord, who is situated in everyone's heart, cursed Citraketu in order to end all his material reactions. Thus, Citraketu became Vritrasura in his next life and returned home, back to Godhead. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpatrubhischa Kripa Sindhubhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langate Girim Yad Kripatama Mande Shri Tisham Sadatam Yuktanam Majatam People. So thank you so much for allowing me to speak today. I'm very humbled to be here in front of you all. I feel like a little cat who's leading the army of big lions. And so I'd like to, this is a very lengthy purport as well as the one from yesterday. So it's very good to see where we are in Bhagavatam, so I'd like to recap and speak a little bit about the pastime of King Citraketu, just to summarize it. And as we all know, he was cursed by Mother Parvati to become a demon, which is an arrangement by the Supreme Lord, so he can go back home quicker. And therefore he accepted the body of a demon. And as the purport says, that through the heart of Parvati, the Lord who was situated in everyone's heart, he cursed Citraketu in order to end his material reactions. And when I was reading this purport and pastime in particular, I actually was reminded about the pastime of gatekeepers Jai and Vijay, who were also cursed to live in the body of a demon. And it happened that they interrupted the great Kumaras from entering into the Vaikuntha planets. They thought that they are just children; they can't be there. And also they said that Lord Vishnu is taking rest, so they can't come in. And Kumaras, they thought that there's some fault in their characters, so they sentenced them to be born on earthly planets. And they gave them a choice whether they would be born as devotees of Lord Vishnu and spend 7 births as devotees of the Lord, or second choice was that if they take 3 births as demons. And of course, Jai and Vijay, they couldn't bear to be away from the Lord for as long as 7 lifetimes, so they decided to choose the second option. And in the first life in Satya Yuga, they were born as Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. and they were killed by Varahadev, and Hiranyakashipu was killed by Lord Nrsimhadev. And in their second life, during the Treta Yuga, they were born as Ravana and Kumbhakarna, and they were both killed by Lord Ramachandra. And then in a third incarnation, during Dvapara Yuga, they were born as Shishupal and Dantavakra, and they were both killed by Krishna. So in their first two births, they were brothers, and then in their final incarnation, they were cousins. This is not exactly the same, but this reminded me of this nice pastime. So Citraketu is the son of Vasishta Muni, and his mother, her name was Urja, and he lived in a province of Shurasena and ruled the entire earth. And he was a very great king, because when he was ruling the earth would produce all the necessities for the citizens. And he was born in a high family. He was well educated. He was very wealthy and possessed a lot of opulences. And even though he was endowed with so many assets, he was full of anxiety due to his not being able to beget a child. And he had 10 million wives. That's really incredible. And even though so many wives were there, but none of them was able to produce a child. So Citraketu, who had no sons, he then met the Angira Muni, the sage Angira Muni, and he saw that the king was very morose, and he asked him, what is happening, what is going on? And then he said, "Oh, great sage, please save me and my forefathers. It seems like we're descending to darkness of hell, because there's no progeny in my family. So please do something. I need to deliver my family from hellish conditions." And therefore the sage, he was very powerful, so he did the yagya, and he offered the oblations of sweet rice to his first wife, Krita Duty. And so she begat a child, and everybody seemed to be happy. But then in some time, because the father would spend a lot of time with the mother and child, everybody, the other wives, they become very envious. So they killed the child. And the king, he was lamenting. And in the beginning, when Angira Muni agreed to give him the opportunity to beget a child, he said that the child would be the cause of your jubilation and at the end lamentation. So his lamentation was growing and growing, just like a blazing fire, and he became almost blind. He was just laying next to the body of a dead son and crying. So then Narada Muni and Angira Muni went to see him again to instruct him about the entanglement of this material life, the bodily consciousness, how people live in the bodily consciousness. And the sages told him that you should consider the real position of the self, the real position of the Atma. The living entity is actually not this body. He's a spirit soul, and he's a part and parcel of God, and he has nothing to do with this material relationships. And then by mystic power, Narada Muni, he has his son re-enter the body, and so Maharaj Citraketu was trying to talk to him, but then the son, when he came back to life, he couldn't recognize his parents. He was saying, "In which birth were this my mother and father? Actually, nobody can be my mother and father. How can I accept these two people as my mother and father?" So just like we see that gold and different commodities, they continually transfer from place to place, or money, for instance, they come to us, we possess them for a while, but then we have to, they leave us. We can't just keep them for a long time. And some people might say that I can just pile up on money and keep them in my safe, but sooner or later it's actually destined to be lost. And just like one time, I remember I was working in a moving company, and I was helping one lady to move her out of the apartment, and just a small crew of 2 people, I think. And I was the one who was disassembling the bed, and I lifted the mattress, and I saw that there was a pile of money laying there. She must have forgotten, I don't know. So I picked it up, and there was a question in my mind: what should I do with this? Should I return the money, or should I keep it? What do you think I did? I gave it back. I wasn't a devotee at that time, but I thought that if I keep the money, there's some reaction. And actually, my friend, when I was living in Moscow, she taught me that if you find something on the street, you should never keep it as your possession. She told me that there's some karma involved with this. So I gave it back to her, and the lady was so nice. She actually gave us a very generous tip at the end. So she forgot. She had no idea, and it was probably like more than $1,000, just hundreds of. So the living entity, as a result of his fruitive activities, he wanders through the entire universe, being injected into various bodies of different species, from one to another, and from one to another, like that. And so Citraketu was in a position where he was ready to hear spiritual instructions, because there was nothing else better than this, you know. So Narada Muni instructed him about the Mahavidya, the absolute truth, the Supreme Lord who creates, maintains, and annihilates everything, and who is the master of the material nature. And eventually, he was able to attain the presence of Lord Sankarshan. So because Narada gave him a mantra, and he was chanting that mantra, trying to find shelter at the lotus feet of Sankarshan. And in his prayers, he was saying that there's a difference between worshipping the Lord and worshipping demigods. There's a text in Vishnu Purana that says that whoever comes before you, even if he be a demigod, is actually created by you, a Supreme Personality of Godhead. So now, after fasting and meditating, he was able to see the Lord. And one of the benedictions that he received is that he became a ruler of the planet Vidyadharas, and that's where we see him. He was in an airplane, chanting the glories of the Lord with them. And at that time, he saw Lord Shiva, who was seated with his wife. She was on his lap, and then he made that comment that. It's a shameless act. Only ordinary human beings act in such a way. And Lord Shiva, he didn't seem that he cared so much. He just smiled. And Mother Parvati, however, she became angry, and she said that there's the presence of so many saintly people. Lord Brahma is here, Lord Bhrigu, Narada, Kapila Dev, Kumaras, the 4 Kumaras. Do you think they have forgotten the religious principles? How can you say such a thing? You are the lowest of the Kshatriyas, she said. You insulted the lotus feet of a great devotee of Lord Shiva, who is actually a personified religion and a spiritual master of the entire world. So you must be punished, she said. And now we see here that actually Maharaj Citraketu is bowing down and is accepting a curse as a mercy of the Lord. And that is the Krishna's plan. In life of great devotees, we see that Krishna's hand is personally involved. And there's, as I said, this purport is very lengthy, but I did find a few very nice, good points from this purport, and so I'd like to mention those. It says here that a devotee always accepts punishment from anyone as the mercy of the Lord. Whereas we see that materialistic people, they always looking for somebody to blame. They're pointing fingers. And that's actually the cause of so many mental issues and problems with health, because they just can't accept the conception of karma, that it's actually my misdeeds in the past. So that's why they're always looking for fault in other people. They don't understand that whatever we experience is a result of one's past deeds, ordained by the Daivanetra, says in the commentary, the superior authority. And it's due to ignorance that they can't understand this. I was distributing books in Balboa Park one time, and I was using Vijay's line about when people say, "I'm good, but you could do better." And I stopped one guy and I told him, well, here, this book's check it out. And he said, I'm good. And I said, well, you could do better. And he said, I doubt it. I said, no, check it out, I'll show you what. And he said, recently, I was diagnosed with cancer, and my only son just passed away. So I doubt that any of these books can help me. And he just walked away. And I was, what do I say to that? So people really go through so much in life, and it's amazing how much we don't know what's going to happen to us. what's going to happen to us. So even in the next moment, just the famous verse, padam padam yat vipadam natesham, that in the material world there's danger at every moment, at every step. So there cannot be any real peace in life. And those who are trying to establish peace and create movements to help people become peaceful, it's actually just a waste of time. It's not possible. Of course, they can attain some material gain from it because they've given up the energy, the hours of work, but there's no spiritual benefit. Unless, as the verse continues, samashrita yat pada palavaplavam, that we take shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord. If one wants to become happy and peaceful, this is the only way. People say sometimes, yes, please, let me see these books, let me have them, let me take these books, let me chant with you, let me come to the program. They're so eager. Like one time I met one devotee, one person from Mexico, his name is Fernando, and he told me that he really likes to meditate a lot. And by a lot, he means really a lot. He says, I meditate sometimes for 7 hours every day. And I sit in the room where nobody can disturb me. I put on an eye mask, ear plug, and I just sit and concentrate and meditate for 7 hours. And he said, I have so many mystical experiences until my family starts calling. He said, I would even meditate for more hours if I can, but my family is there, so I have to do the needful things. And so eventually he was so eager, he took a lot of books and gave a generous donation. And yesterday I was also trying to distribute books in Balboa Park, and I met a very nice couple. They approached me, and they told me, we just want to get out of the house. So I asked them this question, what is the most valuable thing to us in this body? I started using this line because I've heard this in a lecture of Prabhupada, and it's a really nice line, actually. People like it. So I asked them, what is the most valuable thing in your body? And sometimes I say, is it the mind or the heart? And they tell me, the mind or the heart. And it doesn't matter what they say, and I just still show them the books. So this question really hit the nail in their hearts. The guy was thinking for a while, and then he said, the spirit. I think it's the soul, the spirit. And I said, is that I am the spirit or my spirit? And he said, thought for a while, I think I am the spirit, he said. I was like, wow, you really do know what you're talking about. And then I showed him the pictures from Bhagavad Gita, and he seemed to like it. And then all of a sudden, I hear the lady next to him, she started crying. She started crying. And I looked at him, and there was a big pause. And the guy said, we're looking for answers. The reason why we came here, we're looking for answers. He said, our son just passed away a few days ago. So we are trying to look for the meaning. Why has this happened to us, And then I decided to show him some text from the second chapter. It's always relevant to know more about the soul. And I showed him a few texts. I showed him the one, Nasato vidita bhavo, the one who says that those are a series of the truth have concluded that of the non-existent, the material body, there's no endurance. And of the eternal soul, there's no change. And they concluded this after studying the nature of both. And immediately after this, I showed them avinashi tuttat vidhi yena saram edam tadam. And that which pervades the entire body, you should know to be indestructible. And no one is able to destroy the imperishable soul. And the guy was like, wow, that's exactly what I'm looking for. I just needed that confirmation. He said, can you please read this to me again? I read it again, and he was like, wow, this is amazing. Let me make the bookmark right here. We put a bookmark. And then he actually himself couldn't hold it. He himself started crying. He became emotional, and he said to me that I just want to learn how to control my emotions and stop dwelling on these things. It's so horrible, and but I'm very happy that you're here. We were looking for this confirmation. And I told him, I thought for a while, because you got to be very careful how you speak with people in a vulnerable situation like that. Because you can't just preach philosophy to them. It wouldn't work. So I thought that I thought about what should I say to him, and I said, at times like this, we got to inquire. We're going to make inquiries about the eternal life, about God, and we should try to find favorable association and try to come to a holy place, and we should try to I told him this what Prahlad Maharaj says, that when he asked the Lord to deliver his father, the Lord said that not only, if you're a pure devotee, not only that your father will be delivered, that your forefathers from many generations will be delivered. So I told him that if you become devoted in principles of bhakti and follow the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, then you yourself can save your child and many people within your generations. Because I wanted to live in with something optimistic. And then I told him the mantra, the Hare Krishna mantra. We chanted together, and I said it's a Sanskrit prayer that reestablishes you in your original position as a servant of God. And sometimes what we need in life is, actually all the time, is just to be engaged in practical service to God. And then he said, okay, I guess, yeah, you're right about these things. I guess love conquers it all, he said. I said, that's exactly so. So he took a Bhagavad Gita, and I gave him some cookies, the prasadam, and wished him good luck on his path. Invited him to the temple. So another point in the purport is that suffering is a process of purification. It's necessary. It's a part of life. If we tolerate suffering, if we take shelter of the Lord, it turns into a blessing. Suffering for devotees is like a cure. It's a necessary step to make advancement in spiritual life and rectify the living entity of the tendency to enjoy separately from God. Like Srila Prabhupada says that because we have a material body, we suffer. But suffering for a devotee is like a movement of a fan. It goes very fast when we enter this life. But then eventually, by accepting the practice of devotional service, it gradually stop, and no longer there's any suffering. I mean, of course, we might experience some difficulties, but just like Srila Radhanath Maharaj says that miseries are inevitable, but suffering is optional. He says. So, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Janma karma chame divyam evam yaveti tatvata tekta deham punarjanma naiti mamati sojana. It says that after giving this body, the devotee doesn't take birth again in the material world. So, if we're devotees of the Lord, we're not going to get another material body full of suffering. That is one advantage, one of the advantages that we have as bhaktas, as devotees of the Lord. And then it says that one who can understand the truth of the appearance of the personality of Godhead is actually liberated already from material bondage. So our senses are meant for enjoyment, but if we try to enjoy senses in a diseased way, by trying to gratify them, that is the misfortune, and we will have to suffer. So we have to cure the disease by becoming Krishna conscious. And that is the process called anartha nivritti, decreasing of unwanted attachments. Just like there's difficulties and problems that come from the external energy or external world, also there's difficulties that come from inside, and that's called anartha nivritti. So then eventually, if we go through that stage of bhakti, continue progressing, we will enjoy unlimitedly. But materialistic people, they'll have to continue suffering birth after birth, accepting new bodies. And just like Prahlad Maharaj says, charvita charvananam, chewing the chewed. Uncontrolled senses and attachment to make material progress, we all know where it's going to lead people. One time I was, long ago, I was distributing books in La Jolla, and I met this one lady, and I'm sorry to speak about this. Maybe it's not the most appropriate story, but it's very relevant to this purport. Yeah, okay, sorry. So, I met one lady. She was very unfortunate in life. She told me that when she was young, her future husband raped her. And then she had a crisis, like a sexual crisis. So she was saying to me that she tried to understand herself sexually through the body. And then in time before she got married, she told me it's far out. She told me that she had over 200 partners She wanted to understand the life through the body, so she couldn't tell whether she's pretty or not, and then she would go on from partner to partner, and eventually this experience, it turned into something mental, something that really disturbed her. And then she was married. She had a sister, and her husband, he was cheating with her sister multiple times. And then she had 2 sons, and one of the sons, she had brain damage, so he was an invalid. Another son, he was, you can say, he was very intelligent, but he's been feeling very hopeless and suicidal in life. And he was imagining that he has a family, but he would just stay home by himself. And he would speak to his wife and children, but in reality there was no family, so he was just speaking to himself. So I was shown the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, all-devouring enemy, this verse about the lust that covers the intelligence of living entities. And she told me that I had bad experience with religion. I was a Jehovah's Witness, but then they kicked me out because I was trying to search for spiritual advice, and she told me that if you are not behaving properly, and if you're not trying to be in a mode of goodness, always kind of on the level of goodness with the same people, they just tell you to leave, she told me. So she started blaming God for everything that has happened to her, and she asked me a question. She asked me, who is to blame? Why am I experiencing so much difficulties in life, so much suffering? And I thought for a moment, and I said that you're not to blame for the fate of your children. Everyone is walking their path. And then it looked like she was relieved. Her face changed, and she said, "Now I understand." And she said, "I'll take this book. I'll take that book. I'll take this one. This one." she took many books, but yeah, this is the story that is. Also, we've seen in the pastime of Lord Citraketu, who also, his son was an enemy from the past, and he appeared to give him more pain, more severe pain. So similarly, sometimes we see that within the family, our children may be coming to give us pain, and it's related to our past karma. But then, in the purport also, it says the devotee is actually beyond karma. He's experiencing suffering, but this unhappiness, this suffering that we experience as devotees, it's actually not karma. It's a karmic reaction. It's not a karmic reaction. It's a mercy of the Lord. And this happens because Krishna, he's trying to be personally involved in our life, and he wants to teach us how we can completely let go of material world and go back home, back to Godhead. Just like in a purport to the text Tatyeno Kampam Susamikshmano in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it says that a devotee who fully surrenders unto him is no longer liable to suffer the reactions of his previous karma. However, because in his mind the devotee may still maintain the remnants of his previous sinful mentality, the Lord removes the last vestiges of the enjoying spirit by giving his devotee punishments that may sometimes resemble sinful reactions. So this is to help us rectify the tendency to maintain this mood of enjoyment, being separate from God. So this is not karma, this is actually the mercy of the Lord. And this is where we see that Citraketu is showing us that, yeah, he's not afraid or sorry. He bows down, he's very respectful to Mother Parvati, and he even calls her mother. And so he's accepting that curse as a blessing. There's no arguments. This is the excellence of a devotee. He's transcendental to the modes of nature. Sagunan samatityata. So one should not be disturbed by the activities of the modes of nature, and instead he should put his consciousness into Krishna consciousness. So instead of trying to find fault and trying to dig deep into ourselves and trying to see what's wrong with me, why I don't have this quality or that quality, we should just try to think about Krishna and put our attention into Krishna consciousness. And another point, the last one that I see, is Maharaj Citraketu was being cursed by Parvati and should be considered the mercy of the Lord, as I mentioned. So happiness and distress are destined by the past activities, and we should accept them without any fear. And in life of many great devotees within our tradition, we see how they act, how they just fully surrendered to the Lord. For example, we see Jayananda Prabhu. He is a very nice example of that. Among the devotees, Jayananda was like a big brother, and he was always very compassionate, and he always wanted to listen to everybody, and he had a very great service attitude. He was an expert preacher. Whatever assignments was given to him, he would always finish it, and he would disregard his bodily pain or even sleep. So even if he had to suffer, he would personally finish everything. For instance, sometimes they would see new bhaktas join the temple, and sometimes they ask to do some menial service, like taking out the trash. But Jayananda would personally do all of this, and so would say, "Why the new bhaktas have to do it? I will do it myself." So you couldn't stop Jayananda. He seemed inexhaustible, just like Tyler Prabhu. So many times in San Francisco, the devotees, they would go to distribute prasadam, the leftover prasadam from the Sunday feast. And Jayananda, he would go to the kitchen first, and he would clean everything. Of course, he would ask for help, but he himself would work twice as hard. And then when the kitchen was clean, he would take the prasadam and load it in the van and distribute it at the college. The devotees loved Jayananda and talked about him a lot, especially on long drives on traveling Sankirtan. He was very dear to everybody, and he has a great sense of humor. One time, there was a pastime, Jambavan Prabhu, he was awakened by Jayananda, and one time he told him, "Wake up, I've got a benediction for you." And as soon as he woke up, he put a samosa in his mouth. And he also had a great taste for chanting and hearing. Sometimes he would be the only one who would hear. In the beginning, he would be the only one who would hear Srila Prabhupada's classes. And he would go on Harinam, bring devotees on Harinam, and he would distribute the Back to Godhead magazines. And one day he said, things don't always go just right in Krishna consciousness. So you have to keep chanting. Many things may come and go. You just have to have faith in the name. So Krishna is the nearest and most dearest friend of all. He's always waiting within the heart, observing our devotion. So we should just close our eyes and imagine that Krishna is actually present, he's actually here coming out of the heart. He's really there looking at us with his gentle smile. We should pray, and I like this prayer that says, by nature I'm attached to so many wrong things. Please help me to transfer all this attachment to the lotus feet of the Lord. And please help me to chant your holy name with pure attachment. So like Maharaj Yudhishthira, Jayananda's enemy was never born. He had many friends, and many of his relatives glorified him. And the reason why I wanted to bring up Jayananda Prabhu in particular, because I was recently also in Balboa Park, and I saw a man approach the table, and he pointed at my markings, tilak markings, and he said, "Oh, is this a Hare Krishna tilak? Is that a marking?" And I said, yes, it is. And he said, "I probably wouldn't pronounce it right, but do you know Jayananda Prabhu?" I said, "Well, yeah, I do." And I thought, well, maybe there's some, Jayananda, a lot of devotees probably named Jayananda. So we speak, and he tells me that, yeah, I know Jayananda Prabhu is a very nice devotee. He dedicated a lot of his time to your movement. And then I realized, you mean Jayananda Prabhu from the 70s? And he goes, yes, I was able to, he said, the one who passed away in 1977. And he said, I was able to associate with him very closely until 1972. But then he got so busy, so I didn't have any time. And then he told me, he's actually my uncle. So I met Jayananda's Prabhu uncle, and I took a picture of him. So I wanted to show you, because he actually looks almost the same. So I wanted to show you if anybody would want to grab and see. This is him standing.
We got a picture of him. That's cool.
You looked up, yeah. He said, I asked him if you were practicing Krishna consciousness now, and he said that actually I'm not, but I have almost all of the books here. And I practice, he said, I practice a different faith. He told me that he lives somewhere in the desert. And I said, well, because you're from the family of Jayananda Prabhu, you're practically saved. and I wished him. I actually shared a book High Taste with him because he loves our food, and he would go to a restaurant. I think he mentioned in Colorado. So that was very, very amazing to meet a relative of Jayananda Prabhu. Then another very interesting story. I met an African-American couple, and I showed them the books, and they liked it, and I asked them, what's your name? I asked the guy, what's your name? And he told me, my name is Dimitri. And I was thinking, should I tell him my birth name, or should I tell him my initiated name? And I told him, my name is also Dimitri. And he said, no way, really? I'm Dimitri, you Dimitri, I have my son, his name is Dimitri too. Dimitri Jr. I was like, wow, that's amazing. You got to take these books. I asked him, are you into spirituality and meditation? And he said, yes, very much so. So I eventually took like around 10 books. And he said that he saw the Cash App name that I had. And he said, even spelling is the same. And also, my doctor, when we were pregnant at the hospital, his name was also Dimitri, and he was also from Russia. So there's a lot of Dimitris in his life. And at the end, he told me that because of your great cause, I want to give you a very generous donation. And he did. So, so I guess I'll stop here. It's 8:43, and see if you guys like to comment or ask or make a correction.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
So in the purport, Prabhupada's writing that Citraketu did not commit any offense, but still he accepted the curse.
That was my question. I have it ready to go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He knew that he had not committed any offense.
Yeah, so it's just confusing.
Yeah, this is, but then we see that he did not commit any, like a major offense. But because Krishna was personally involved, he wanted to give a benediction, a blessing to, that's my understanding at least, he wanted to help Citraketu to go back home quicker, because actually when he was ruling, we can see he was a Mahatma, he was a great soul, and he was a pure devotee, so it was his time to go back home. So therefore we see that Mother Parvati was actually kind of like an instrument in Krishna's hands. So through her, she cursed him, and through her, that benediction was given that he would accept the body of a demon and then go back home. At least that's my understanding. Even that the purport says here the same, that Lord, we see that he knew that he had not committed any offense, yet he had been punished, and that means that the punishment had been ordained. The king didn't mind it. A devotee is naturally so humble, and he accepts punishment from anyone as the mercy of the Lord. And he sees that whatever reverses occur to be due to his past misdeeds, they occur to be due to his past, and he never accuses anyone, so he just accepts him as a mercy. So this is another way, this is Krishna's personal mercy, Krishna's personal favor. He intervened.
Yeah, just in addition to that, as it's been mentioned in previous classes, it's the principle of pastime, it's arrangement, right, of Krishna. And just like I was thinking about, there's this pastime in the Chaitanya Charitamrita of Chota Haridas, Junior. Chota Haridas. Chota means junior, but because there's a Haridas talk or Namacharya, but then there's the other Haridas. So Chota Haridas, he was banished from the association of Lord Chaitanya. Personally, Lord Chaitanya banished him. But if you really look at what he did, and sometimes it's explained like that, I mean, the fence was, I mean, he hardly did anything. But anyway, sometimes these things take place for the purpose of teaching, for teaching us. The great devotees, they teach us how we should behave and how we should react and all that. So it's for the purpose of teaching. That's an important aspect of it.
Yeah, to rectify the improper sinful behavior. Sometimes it's also there.
The benediction, and do they remember, like, when they, like, as Hiranyakashipu, do they remember their past lives? Like, do they know that they only have these 3 lives as demons?
I don't know. Do you think they don't remember? They don't remember that. They've been going through bodies of the demons. Yeah, it wouldn't make sense if they would remember it, because they would be very surprised to always accept the body of a demon one after another. So yeah, yeah, they're acting as demons. Yeah, 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 yeah. That's true. They would be thinking how they were acting as demons before, and that would mess up their character now.
I wanted to appreciate the stories you were sharing about Sankirtan and how, like, different people suffer and how much they go through and they get the books or Krishna mantra, and how it helps them. And one of the story I came personally, I never did book distribution, but last week we are conducting this Bhagavad Gita course, and in Purushottam month we invited people to chant 2 rounds on virtually, like every day, 20 minutes, and there are 50 people come around all over the world, like people from different regions. And one of the Mataji there, not a devotee, very new, and after 15 days we were asking, how was your experience so far, 15 days, and how do you feel? And one of the Matajis, she's young, like 20, 24-year-old, she was saying that before, like, the Bhagavad Gita course starts, she had multiple suicide attempts. And family was not supporting, she has some bad experiences, and she was trying to commit suicide, and she came out this course. Course finished around 2 months, we are finishing. But then she was starting chanting, and now she have a lot of positive vibes and experience within like 15 days of chanting. We play Prabhupada audio and people chant, everybody chants, and I was like surprised, like, what is this? Because we never imagine like where things can go and who gets it. And I was like so surprised to see her. So I totally relate, like, people, we never know who is going to get help from books or chanting or messages, and it's really amazing how it works. So thank you for sharing.
There was one story in India. There was a family, and I don't remember all the details, but so they were having a picnic next to I think Yamuna River or something like that. I don't exactly remember, but they were just having something like a break, and at some point Maybe it's not a Yamuna River. I'm not sure. But anyways, at some point, the husband he went to swim in the river, and he was actually dragged by the crocodile inside, and he died. He passed away. So the wife, she for a long time she couldn't sleep, and then she met devotees, and she started chanting. And the first night after she started chanting, she said, "I'll chant as much as I need to get rid of this." Sometimes people also say in book distribution, "I'll take whatever you have. I just need some help right away." So she chanted 16 rounds, and then within the first night she fell asleep. She had a lot of sound sleep. And we see that devotees, when they first join, when they start chanting, they almost like start levitating because they experience the great mercy of Krishna. It's kind of like an inducing power, like to attract, so they experience bliss, and Krishna is giving them some mercy in the beginning. So that's there. Yeah. Okay, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All glories to the Assembly of devotees.